All right, strap in, everyone, because today we are going deep on posthumanism.
Ooh, exciting.
But not the robots taking over the world kind of stuff.
Yeah, no
We're
Terminator.
going full-on philosophy here,
Love it.
using this super interesting academic article by Luca Valera to, guide us.
Well, I think that's a really smart choice, actually, because
Yeah.
this article, it really, like, pushes you to think outside those typical sci-fi tropes, you know?
Right, right.
It asks, like, what if being post-human isn't about, like, you know,
Yeah,
becoming some kind of superhuman,
right.
but about, radically changing how we even see
Yeah.
the whole concept of what it means to be human.
Yeah, I was hooked, honestly, like right from the first page, where the article makes this really sharp distinction
Oh, yeah.
between transhumanism and posthumanism.
That's important.
And I always kind of thought of those as like basically the same thing.
Right, right.
But they're totally different.
Completely different, yeah.
Completely different beasts.
Yeah.
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 So transhumanism, as the article lays it out,
Mhm.
is all about using technology
Yeah.
to enhance our abilities, right?
Exactly. Enhance, upgrade, become better.
Like, remember that quote from Nick Bostrom?
Oh, yeah.
Where
Yeah.
he's talking about how we'll have modules for everything.
Oh, I love
Like,
yeah.
you're feeling lazy, boom, there's a module for that.
Productivity module. Install.
In case you're super productive,
Exactly.
need to solve some crazy complex equation, module,
Fun.
done.
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, I'm kind of okay with the productivity boost,
Right.
but a module to, like, think for me,
I know.
it's, like, intriguing, but also kind of scary, you know?
Totally.
But this article makes it clear that posthumanism is
Yeah.
way beyond just souped up brains, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about, like, individual upgrades or enhancements.
Like,
It's way more fundamental than that.
okay.
It's like a total, like,
Yeah.
paradigm shift,
Okay.
you know?
It's like questioning this whole idea
Okay.
that humans are somehow
Yeah.
separate from like
Okay.
superior
Uh-huh.
to, everything else.
Okay.
Instead, it emphasizes like this interconnectedness
Okay.
with technology, the environment, other species,
Yeah.
like everything.
Okay, so more like we're all nodes in one massive network.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of that, like, classic human-centered view.
Exactly. And the article uses this really striking metaphor to
Okay.
kind of illustrate that point.
Okay.
It compares the post-human entity
Mhm.
to a network
Okay.
within like this larger superorganism.
Superorganism. Okay.
Where individuality becomes less important
Right.
than the connections and flows between everything.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So no distinct self.
Right.
Just this kind of universal blending.
But then, like, wouldn't we lose what makes us, well, us?
That's a great question.
Right.
And it's one the article really digs into.
Okay.
It even uses this word, contamination.
Yeah, contamination, that doesn't sound so good.
Right.
Like, is that
It's provocative.
a good thing?
I think that's deliberate. You know, the
Right.
word contamination
Yeah.
makes us confront this,
Okay.
like, discomfort
Okay.
with this idea of, like, dissolving boundaries.
Yeah. So, like, are we really okay with that?
Right. What does it actually mean
Yeah.
to break down all these barriers between humans and everything else?
So is it like liberation
Yeah.
or are we losing something like
Yeah.
essential in the process?
Totally. Yeah.
It's funny because even the way we talk about technology
But yeah.
often reveals like this fear of contamination.
Right.
And the article, it mentions Roberto Martesini,
Yeah.
who says we view machines and even animals as like alien
Oh, interesting.
because we see them as so separate from ourselves.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But is that separation like real
Mm-hmm.
or is it just a story we tell ourselves?
It's a great question.
You know?
Yeah. And a story with really deep roots, too.
Right?
We've spent, like, centuries
Yeah.
building up this idea of human exceptionalism.
Human exceptionalism.
But posthumanism says, hey,
Yeah.
maybe it's time to re-examine that story.
Okay, so not just like fear contamination,
Right.
but embrace the possibility of like
Yes.
radical interconnectedness.
That's it.
Wow. That's pretty profound stuff, honestly.
Yeah.
But it is kind of liberating to even like consider these ideas.
It is. Yeah,
right?
It is.
Like maybe those boundaries we cling to so tightly,
Yeah.
they're not as solid as we think.
Yeah.
Maybe humanity itself
Yeah.
isn't like a fixed point,
Uh-huh.
but it's something that's like always evolving.
Exactly. That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because if there are no fixed limits
Right.
to what it means to be human,
Right.
then the possibilities for transformation become,
Yeah.
well, limitless.
Okay, but doesn't that create like some
It's-
some paradoxes, right?
Yeah.
Like if everything is possible,
Yeah.
does anything really matter?
That's a great point. And the article actually argues that
Right.
a world without limits might be
Yeah.
self-contradictory.
Okay, okay.
To have a concept of perfection, you need to have a concept of imperfection
Right.
to measure it against.
Right. To define it.
Right. If we erase all boundaries,
Yeah.
do we also erase the possibility of, like,
Yeah.
meaning
Yeah.
and progress?
Okay, so maybe those boundaries,
Yeah.
even the ones that like feel limiting,
Mhm.
they're actually what give our lives
Yeah.
shape and purpose.
Totally. It's like trying to navigate without a map,
Yeah, yeah.
without some sense of direction, some idea of where you're going.
Yeah.
You're just lost
Loss.
in this like sea of infinite possibilities.
Okay, I need a minute to process all this.
I know, right?
It's deep. This is way deeper than I thought we were going to go.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good.
That's the beauty of it,
Yeah.
A deep dive into posthumanism.
It's like a workout for your brain.
It is.
Right.
It forces you to confront all these fundamental questions about
Okay.
who we are, what our place is in the universe,
Yeah.
and, what it even means to be human.
Okay.
But trust me, it's worth the mental workout.
All right. You've convinced me. I'm ready for more. Let's keep going.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Because the article then takes us into this really fascinating
Yeah.
discussion of the role of technology in this whole post-humanist vision.
Okay.
And it's not just about, using tech to, like, enhance ourselves,
Right.
like we were talking about with transhumanism.
Right.
It's much more radical than that.
Okay. I'm all ears. But
Yeah.
can we maybe, like, grab a metaphorical life preserver first? I have a feeling we're going even deeper now.
Yeah, buckle up. We're doing it.
Okay, so we've kind of established that posthumanism, it's not about like, becoming superhuman.
Right.
It's about like fundamentally changing how we see ourselves and our place in like the whole universe,
Exactly.
Now I think it's time to like dive into this
Yeah.
whole role of technology in the posthumanist vision.
Well, the article makes a really critical distinction here.
Okay.
It says that for posthumanists,
Yeah.
technology isn't just a tool.
Okay.
It's like woven into the very fabric of their being.
Okay. I'm going to need you to like unpack that one a little bit.
Sure.
Because how can technology be a part of our being?
Yeah.
Like, isn't it something external, something we use?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the traditional way of thinking about it.
Right.
But this article is saying, like, hey, challenge yourself to think differently.
Okay.
Like, think about how much technology is already a part of our daily lives.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
We rely on it for, like, communication, information, entertainment,
Yeah.
even, like, basic survival in some cases.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Our smartphones,
Yeah.
they're basically extensions of ourselves.
Okay. So true. I literally can't imagine life without my phone.
Right.
But does that, like, really mean
Yeah.
that technology is changing who we are
Well,
at, like, a fundamental level?
The article suggests it does, yeah.
Okay.
It points to the work of this philosopher, Roberto Martesini,
Okay.
who argues that our tendency to view technology as, like, separate from ourselves
Uh-huh.
has led to a sense of alienation.
Okay.
And not just from machines, but from other living beings, too.
So we've created this, like, divide
Yeah.
between natural
Mm.
and artificial.
Right.
And that's, like, distorting our whole view of our place in the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
And posthumanism is all about, like, dissolving that line.
Okay.
Seeing technology as part of a continuum with the natural world
Okay.
and ourselves.
Okay, but that would require, like,
Yeah.
a pretty radical shift in perspective.
It would.
Right. Because we're so used to seeing ourselves as, like, separate from,
Yeah.
and in some ways superior to the rest of nature.
Absolutely. It's a massive challenge.
Right.
And the article actually calls it,
Yeah.
like, a metaphysical revolution.
Metaphysical revolution.
Yeah.
Intense.
Right.
So, like, how do we even begin to...
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Traditionally, we've emphasized this idea of, like,
Yeah.
individual substance.
Okay.
Like, each of us
Yeah.
is a separate, independent being.
Okay.
But posthumanism kind of, like, flips that script.
Okay.
It prioritizes the connections and the relationships
Mm-hmm.
that make up reality, saying that those are more fundamental
Yeah.
than any, like, individual entity.
Okay, so it's not like me first.
No.
It's we're all connected. Okay, I'm starting to get it.
And that shift lets posthumanism move beyond some of those like
Yeah.
thorny issues about like human nature
Yeah.
that we've
Yeah.
been debating for centuries.
Right. So
There's no fixed human nature.
right.
Then there's no limit
Yeah.
to how we can transform ourselves.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
That brings us back to like that idea of contamination you
Yeah.
mentioned. It's not just about accepting like difference. It's
Oh,
about actively blurring the lines between ourselves and
Yes.
everything else.
And the article argues that this blurring
Yeah.
is like essential to achieving the post-human vision.
Okay.
It's about embracing the possibility of, hybridization,
Mhm.
not just between humans and machines,
Okay.
but between humans and other life forms too.
Okay, this is where things start to get like really wild.
Right.
The article talks about like merging with nature, becoming part of this super organism,
Mhm.
even like tapping into that universal life force, Zoe.
Yeah, it's heady stuff.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we run into some of the most significant challenges too, like this whole post-humanist vision. Right. Because, merging with nature isn't always like a harmonious kumbaya experience,
Right.
Nature can be
Mhm.
pretty brutal.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it is full of beauty and wonder,
Right.
but it's also full of violence, competition, and let's be honest,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of gross stuff.
Yeah, nature's not always pretty.
So, like, can we really achieve this
Oh, yeah.
utopian, post-human future if we're merging with a world that's often,
Mhm.
red in tooth and claw?
The article actually acknowledges these challenges.
Okay.
It brings up the violence and competition that's
Mhm.
just like inherent in nature,
Yeah.
and asks some tough questions like,
Okay.
can we really achieve this harmonious post-human utopia?
Right.
And, what happens to these uniquely human concepts like
Yeah.
compassion and empathy
Right.
in this new paradigm?
Yeah. That's something I've been, like, thinking about, too, because if we lose that sense of separation
Yeah.
from other creatures,
Mm-hmm.
do we also lose the capacity to, like, care for them in a meaningful way?
That's a great question.
You know?
And the article doesn't give like easy answers.
Right.
It suggests that maybe
Yeah.
our whole understanding of compassion and empathy
Mm-hmm.
might need to evolve
Okay.
as we move towards this like
Right, yeah.
post-human future.
So it's not about, like, erasing our humanity. It's
Right.
about redefining it.
Yeah.
In light of these new possibilities.
Exactly. And maybe it's not even a finding like definitive answers,
Yeah.
but about like opening ourselves up
Correct.
to these new ways of understanding our
Yeah.
place in the universe.
Okay, so I think we've explored how posthumanism challenges our ideas about, the self, about technology, about our relationship with nature.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But, like, where does all of this leave us?
Why?
What does it all mean?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And honestly, the article doesn't offer any simple answers,
Okay.
but it does give us some clues.
Okay. I'm ready for those clues.
Okay, great.
Hit me.
One of the big takeaways, I think, is that even in like its most radical forms,
Mm-hmm.
posthumanism,
Yeah.
it's still deeply rooted in like
Yeah.
human concerns.
Like that desire for transcendence we talked about earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Pushing beyond our limits.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And the article brings up this concept of embodied intelligence
Embodied intelligence.
as a way of like understanding this.
Okay.
So it's like, we don't just think with our minds,
Yes.
we think with our bodies as well.
Right.
Our physical form, it shapes our experience of the world and like influences how we think and feel.
So how does that, like, tie back into posthumanism?
Well, if our physical form is so connected to our thinking,
Right.
then like changing our physical form,
Mm.
whether through technology or by, merging with other life forms,
Right.
it would inevitably change how we think.
But we're not just talking about, like, upgrading our hardware.
Right.
We're talking about, like, fundamentally changing our software, too.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
And that opens up all these fascinating questions about like
Yeah.
the future of consciousness.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
what would a post-human philosophy even look like?
Right.
Would our current ideas of ethics,
Mm.
art,
Yeah.
meaning
Mm-hmm.
even make sense in a world where like
Yeah.
the boundaries of being human have
Mhm.
been like completely blurred?
Wow, those are some like
That's it.
mind-blowing questions.
They are.
Like if we're no longer limited by our, current physical form,
Yeah.
what's to stop us from like becoming
Godlike beings.
Right.
Or like even merging into a single like
Yeah.
universal consciousness.
I mean, those are some of the big questions that
Right.
article is grappling with.
Okay.
And it's challenging us to really consider what those possibilities might mean
Right.
for our understanding of like ourselves in the universe.
So like this article isn't saying that those things are definitely going to happen.
Right.
But it's saying that like, hey, this is worth thinking about.
It's worth considering.
Okay. It's like we're standing on the edge of like this vast uncharted territory. You know, we can like see glimpses of what might lie ahead, but we can't really fully grasp it.
No.
You know?
It's exciting.
It's exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
And that sense of mystery.
Yeah.
You know, like feeling like we're on the cusp of something truly transformative.
Yeah.
That's what makes posthumanism so
compelling. Yeah.
It's not about like finding all the answers.
Yeah.
It's about embracing the unknown.
Right.
And challenging ourselves to imagine like new possibilities for what it means to be human.
Okay, so I am definitely feeling that sense of wonder.
Good.
And a little bit of like existential vertigo right now.
That's good. That means it's working.
Yeah.
That means you're really thinking about it.
This deep dive has taken us to some like pretty unexpected places.
That's the fun of it.
Right.
Right.
It's been a journey.
That's the beauty of exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
It pushes us beyond our comfort zones, makes us confront the big questions about like who we are, where we're going.
So like, where do we go from here?
Well, I think the article leaves us with a challenge, really. It asks us to consider what it would really mean to embrace a post-human future. Like, what kind of world would we create? What values would we prioritize?
Right.
And how would we, like, reconcile our human past with our post-human future?
Those are some, like, really heavy questions to ponder.
They are, but I think they're worth grappling with.
Okay.
Because ultimately, posthumanism, it's not just some, like, abstract philosophical concept.
Right.
It's a potential future that we're shaping with every choice we make.
Okay, I'm ready to, like, dive into that challenge.
Good.
Let's explore what a post-human future might actually look like.
Yes, let's do it.
And what it would mean for us.
Okay.
You know, as individuals and as, like, a species.
Let's go.
Okay, so we've explored some, like, seriously mind-bending ideas, you know, contamination, metaphysical revolution, even like this idea of a superorganism.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think the question I'm like left with is, what does a post-human future actually look like?
The big question.
Right. Are we talking like uploading our minds to computers, merging with dolphins or something? Like totally beyond our current comprehension.
Well, that's the exciting part, right?
Yeah.
The article doesn't give us like a blueprint, which I think is intentional.
Okay.
It's more about asking like what could be possible if we like fundamentally reimagine the boundaries of being human.
So like, instead of concrete predictions, it's more about opening up our imaginations.
Exactly. And it pushes us to consider, like, which human values, if any, we'd want to, like, carry with us into this post-human future.
Okay.
You know, for example, the article talks about embodied intelligence.
Oh, yeah, right. Embodied intelligence.
That idea that, like, our thinking isn't just in our brains. It's intertwined with our physical bodies, too.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, what happens when those bodies change radically?
Right. Or even cease to exist in the way we understand them now.
That is trippy.
Right.
Like if we upload our consciousness to some digital world, would we still have emotions? Would we still feel like love, grief, or even like that basic sense of self?
I mean, these are the questions
Right.
that philosophers, stay up all night thinking about.
Totally.
And the article kind of hints that a post-human philosophy might need to, like, grapple with entirely new categories of experience. Like, what does ethics even mean? When the lines between, like, self and other come blurred? What does art look like when it's created by, like, a hive mind or a being that exists in multiple dimensions.
Okay, my brain is officially glitching.
I know, right?
It's like trying to, like, imagine a color you've never seen before.
Exactly.
But here's something I'm curious about.
Like, even if we could achieve this, like, post-human state, should we?
Right.
Is there a risk of, like, losing something precious about our humanity in the process?
That is the core of the debate. And you know what?
What?
The article doesn't take sides. It's presenting posthumanism as like a provocation, a challenge to think deeply about what we value most about being human.
Right.
And whether those values can or even should be preserved in a radically different future.
It's funny because in a way, this whole discussion about like transcending the human actually highlights what it means to be human. Right now, it makes you like appreciate the complexity of our emotions, our relationships, our very way of experiencing the world.
It's like looking in a mirror to our own humanity and asking, what do we see?
And I think that's a powerful takeaway from this whole like deep dive. Even if we never achieve a post-human future, just the act of imagining it forces us to like confront our limitations, our desires, and those fundamental questions about what gives our lives meaning.
It's a journey of self-discovery. Even if like the destination is unknown.
And I gotta say, I'm kind of grateful for that mystery. It leaves me feeling both like humbled and inspired. Like we're on the verge of something truly extraordinary, even if we can't fully grasp it yet.
That's the beauty of intellectual exploration.
Right.
Opens up more doors than it closes.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am feeling like simultaneously energized and exhausted after this deep dive.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So big thanks to you for being such a like
you're welcome.
Brilliant guide through this. Like
thank you.
Complex and thought-provoking,
It's been my pleasure. And to all our listeners out there.
Yes.
Keep those minds open and those imaginations firing.
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe you'll be the ones to shape the post-human future.
Until next time.
Yes.
Keep diving deep.